Okay, and welcome back to another episode of Mr. Dumb Rocks. We're continuing with our tower defense game, and this is going to be a program called Phat Kids. And I'll go ahead and show you at this point kind of where we're going with this. And we're going to go into, let's go to another folder here. I want to go into maybe this one, and we'll take a look at what this is, where this is going. If I were to run this program, notice I'm going to change the artwork. And so the story is the turrets are actually going to be these toys. And all the code that we see is going to be exactly the same. It's just instead of turret 1 being a turret shooting bullets at a ship, we're going to have teddy bears throwing broccoli at junk food. And there's going to be 4 different types of toys, and we're going to drag the toys out on the screen and so forth. We haven't done that in this particular version. In this version, we have still the old artwork. The program is called Phat Kids. Main game, we're going to make some changes, and the main thing we want to do in this version of the program is that we want to create a menu and have tiles on the menu with the icon that we want. So let's go ahead and take a look in the library. We have inside the library now we have our turrets, and we have, for instance, turret 1. If I drag that out on the stage, that's turret 1. And we have turret 2, 3, and 4. We have our general turret, and we have bullets. So the new thing that we're having in terms of the library are we have 4 different kinds of turrets, and so that's these guys. The other thing that's changed is we have turret icons, and these are images of the same turrets, but they are not they're not the turrets. So this is a movie clip called T4 Icon, and it's a picture of turret. Actually, it's not a picture of turret 4. T3 icon, T2 icon, and T1 icon. These icons should match exactly the pictures of the turrets that I have here. So it looks like I've made a mistake in not lining them up perfectly, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. The important thing is when I affect the turret, I don't want to affect the icon and vice versa. What's going to happen is the icon is going to appear on the menu. When I click on the icon, I'm going to form a turret, or I'm going to create a turret. It's going to be added to the stage as I drag it away. So I need to have the same picture for T3 icon as I have for turret 3. You can see it's the same picture, but they're 2 different objects, each with its own class. Okay, moving on. I've got main game. Now, the main thing that I want to go over right now is that I'm going to make changes to a class called menu area, and I'm going to make changes to a class called tile. So the menu area, we've already had that in the past. That was created back in main game when I create my different areas. Let's see, if I go back into the main constructor function, I have set game area, create game area mask, and I have set menu area. I had that way back, I think in the very first lesson of this game we set the menu area, but now the difference is inside this menu area I'm going to add tiles. And so in order to do this, I'm going to go ahead and make some changes in the menu area, and inside menu area I am going to create a variable called tiles. I should probably actually show you what tiles are at this point also. If I look back, if I go back to my main stage and I look inside, let's see, the areas, I've got a tile is just simply a square. So I'm going to have my menu area is going to show up over on the side just as it did before, but I'm going to place 4 of these tiles on the menu area, and then I'm going to place inside each tile a particular icon. So icon 1 for turret 1 and so forth. Okay, so let's go to menu area and let's make some changes here. So first thing I want to do is inside menu area, I want to make sure that I'm going to create a variable called tiles, and this is going to be an array. So I'll call this tiles. It will be of type array. And inside the constructor function, I want to make sure I set that. So I'll say tiles equals new. So I have the operator new, and I set create an array. Now I'm going to push each of my tiles that I create right in here. And so to do that, I've got another method that I'm going to create. Remember, when I put a function inside a class, it's a method. I guess the only difference that I know of between a method and a class is that a function and a method is that a function can exist on its own, where a method is dependent upon the class. So if I say at this point public, and I create a function, which use the keyword function, but this is actually a method. It's inside a class, and I'm going to go ahead and create a method called addTile. And this addTile is not going to return anything, but it is going to receive as a parameter a parameter which is going to be a tile. So addTile simply is going to take t, and that is going to be of type tile. So notice I do have a tile class. I'm going to get to that in just a minute. But to create this function, the only thing I want to do here is I pass in the parameter t of type tile, and I put an s there, which I don't want. So I got t, and I'm going to set its x property, and I'll set it to 20, and we'll see why in a minute. I'll go ahead and say t.y, and I'll set its y property, and this is going to be equal to 110 times tiles, which is my array, dot length. So when the array has length 0, I'll get 0. When it has length 1, I'll get 110 times 1. But I also want to add 50 to that. So plus 50. Okay. Now at this point, this guy is ready to create. This guy, I need to push t into my tiles array. So I'll say simply push, and I'm going to push t into my array of tiles. And then I want to add tiles. So I'm going to say this dot add child. Now this, in this case, since I'm in the menu area, this is the menu area. So this is the menu area, add child, and I'm going to simply add t. And so t gets added to the menu area. And notice that each time another tile gets pushed in, it's going to have the same x coordinate, but the y coordinate is going to increase each time I do this. Okay, so if I've done all this correctly, and I need to close this, so let's make sure I do that. And this guy looks like he's ready to go. So this is the main function, open and close, the class open and closes, and the package. Wow, looks like I need one more curly bracket. And at this point, so this looks like the end of my package. And this will be the end of my class. And if I have done all of that correctly, then if I do the auto format, it won't have any problems. And it looks like it's clean. Okay, good. So that's the menu area, and if I save that, that is good to go. All right. At this point, let's see, I don't have much imported. I think that's all I need. That's looking finished. So I've got created a variable, instantiated the variable, called the function. Now I'm going to be calling this function from another place, so that's fine. This next class is going to be a little bit more complex, and so in this case I'm going to import flash display movie clips because tile extends movie clip. But I need to import a couple of other things. I also am going to import display object, and we'll see why in just a moment. So flash display, and this is display object. We did that before when we were working with our waypoints, so that should look familiar. So that's display object. And finally, we're going to import events, and specifically we're going to do events, and I'm just going to import all of them. So I'll just say events.star. Okay, at this point, I've got my class, I've instantiated that. I need to set up some variables, so I'm going to set up a public variable, And let's see, public. So this guy can be seen from outside of the class. The scope, or where it's visible, can be outside. And this is going to be a variable called create turret. And this variable is going to be of type function. So a function can be a type. You can create a variable of type function. And we're going to create a function called create turret, but this is a variable that I can actually use in my parameter passing. Private variable, this next one is going to be visible only in this class, so private var. And this variable is going to be cost, and it's going to be an int. And so I'm not going to really use that at this point, but I will get to the place where each turret can have its own cost. And so the tile, when I click on the tile to create a turret, cost is going to be, let's say, recorded at that point. I also have a variable called range. And so I will just set this guy up as, I guess this guy can be public. So public var range, and range is going to be an int. And I will set that up down here inside the constructor. Now, since I'm going to be receiving parameters here, I'm going to set those up right now. The first one is I need to set up an image, which is a display object, and that means that the parameter, display object, the parameter, I'm going to pass in an image, and it's going to be of type display object, and that's actually going to be the picture icon. When I create my tile, it's going to be passed in. So I'll have 4 tiles on the main menu, and every time I create a new tile, I'm going to create a new image. Each turret is going to have its own image, where each tile will have an image of the 4 different types of turrets that I have, or as many turrets as I want. It really doesn't make any difference. And then I'm going to have a second guy, and I'll call him C, and this is going to be an int, and that's going to be cost. I'll have another comma. And then the third parameter that I'm going to pass in will be a function, and I'll call this function turret creator. And turret creator is going to be of type function. So here is where my function body is going to go. I'm passing in the 3. So I've created, or I've declared some variables up on top. I'm passing in 3 parameters. And inside my constructor function, I'm going to, first of all, locate the image. So this image is display object, and I'm going to say image.x is equal to 35. And that means that the image, which is going to be of type display object, I'm going to pass it an image of my turret, and it's going to be placed on this tile. So I'm in the tile class. If I wanted to put the keyword this here, I could do that, but I think I'll pass on that right now. So I have image dot y is also going to be equal to 35. So it'll be placed in the center of the tile. And then I will say this dot add image, add child rather, sorry. And I'm going to pass in the image. And the image is whatever I received as my parameter. Okay, so that gets placed onside the tile. So the tile is going to get placed in the menu area, and the image that gets passed in as a parameter here gets placed into or onto the tile. And each tile will have its own image. Okay, good. The other thing I will do is I will add an event listener. So I will say this dot add event listener, and I'm going to be listening for a mouse event, and specifically, I don't think we've used this particular mouse event before, but the mouse event that I'm going to be listening for is going to be a mouse down event. And mouse down is when I hold the mouse down And this needs to be all caps, so let's go ahead and just say mouse down right there. And when I hold the mouse down, not click, but down, I'm holding the mouse down over this particular tile. At that point, I'm going to call a function called spawn turret. And so I hold the mouse over the tile, it will spawn the turret, and that is going to create a new turret for me. And so I have spawn turret here already created. Notice I have a mouse event here. I'm not passing anything back, so I have variable turret. Let's just change this guy to t. T is of type turret, create turret as turret. And then if t does not equal null, I set t.x, I set t.y, and I have root as main game. I have a function back here called add turret. This is a function that has to be on main game. And I plug in t, which is of type turret, cost, and range. So that's it for the tile. And I think that's all done. Now back in main game, this is where things get a little bit trickier. So I'm going to go ahead at this point and go back to my main game. So here in main game, I want to add some code right here. And so this is in a function called set menu area. And in set menu area, notice I'm not returning anything. All of this is the same thing I did before. This is the menu area rectangle, which is going to be in the left-hand side of my stage. And so I have MA equals new menu area, then I set its location, I add child. But now what I want to do is I want to add a tile to the menu area. So I say MA, and I'm going to go ahead and call a function add tile. And as we saw before, add tile, let's go back to our menu area. Menu area has add tile as a method inside menu area. So I've got my main game. I've got MA is of type menu area. So now this particular instance of the menu area has access to the function or to the method, which is going to be add tile. And instead of saving it, I deleted it. So add tile is right here. So if I go back to my main game, and this guy is ready to go. Now I'm going to be passing in parameters, and if I look at this guy, the only thing I have to do is I have to pass in a tile. So when I call this function, I've got to add a tile, or when I call this method add tile, I've got to send it a tile. And so I can create a tile. I could, for instance, say here t is of type tile, and I could say equals new tile. Okay, I could do something like this, make this guy a variable t, and then send t in here. Okay, so that would be sort of the default way of doing it, but I'm going to take a little shortcut here, which might seem a little bit more complicated. What I'm going to do is right inside, I'm simply going to say new tile. And new tile is just going to be a tile. It's going to create a new tile, and it's going to send it over here as a parameter, and it's going to receive it in as t of type tile. However, just to make things more interesting, when I create this new tile, I've created that there. I am going to when I create a tile, I've got to send in 3 parameters to tile, right? So we did that here. When I create a new tile, here, sorry, backing up here. When I create a tile, I've got to have 1, 2, 3 parameters that I'm passing into tile. Okay, so what that means is that when I create this guy, I've got to put 3 parameters in here. And the first one has to be an image icon. And so I'm just going to say new t1 icon, and that is a parameter that I can pass. It's going to create a new icon of type t1, and it's going to pass that in. Okay, and then I'm going to send in a variable, and I'm going to send in a cost. It could be anything I want. I'll go ahead and put in 100. And then, this is the tricky part, I'm going to send in my third parameter. Now, if I look back at my tile class, I'm expecting a function. So I sent in a display object, and it turns out my T1 icon is going to be a movie clip, and that's a type of display object. I'm going to pass in C, which is going to be an integer, so I put in the number 100. But now I'm sending in a parameter of type function. And so here I'm going to write the word function, and since it's a function, I need my two brackets, and then I need my curly brackets for the body of the function. So there's the body of my function right there, and I'll end this whole thing with a semicolon. Now, I don't have to write a long piece of code here, but I am going to simply write a return statement, return, and inside the return statement I'm going to say new, and I'm going to create turret 1. And so now my three parameters. So what did I do? I'm adding a tile, and I'm just saying new tile, but then when I create a tile I've got to send in three parameters to this. So at this point, this whole guy is going to create a tile and put it right on the menu area. But I actually want to do it also for the T2, and so I'll put turret 2. So I'm going to have a turret 2 icon, and then I want to do the same thing for turret 3 and for turret 4. So let's go ahead and say turret T3 icon and T4 icon, and this is going to be turret 3, and this is going to be turret 4. And I'm going to stop right there. We're going to add the rest of this and make sure it's working, and we'll put that in a file called 7b. Okay, I'm sorry, this is 8. So we'll call this 8a, and I'll do another one called 8b. So that's it for today. Bye-bye.